On my birthday, my mom took a trip with her new family, leaving me at home by myself. They were no longer welcome in the house, so I kicked them out. I'm 18 years old, and things have always been hard in my life. When I was 10, my dad died. He left behind a house and some savings that were put in a trust that my grandparents were in charge of. As a child, I knew that the house would be officially mine when I turned 18. Until then. In theory, my mom could live there, run the house, and take care of me, and that's what everyone expected her to do. But as time went on, it became clear that my mom's goals had changed completely. She seemed more interested in her new husband and their kids than in me after she got married again when I was 12. Over time, I was less important than she thought I was. I was just a person who lived in the house while she played happy family with her new friends. I got used to it, to be honest. My grandparents saved my life by always checking on me, making sure I had what I needed, and making sure I was okay. They even took care of all the official stuff for the house until I turned 18. Now, a few weeks ago, right before my birthday, my grandparents talked to the lawyer who was in charge of my dad's estate. They told me that I would receive full ownership of the house on my birthday. They also told me that I would be able to choose who lived there once I was the official owner. I kept that information in mind, but at the time I didn't give it much thought. It wasn't clear to me how important it would become. Being 18 years old, I was excited to have a party with my family on my birthday. That's what I thought anyway. My mom casually said the night before, "Oh, by the way, we're going on vacation to a resort tomorrow. Your stepdad, the kids, and I are the only ones here. Do you mind? You can stay here by yourself now that you're old enough." I was shocked as I looked at her. "You're taking a trip on my birthday?" I asked. As if to say no, she waved her hand. "Do not stress this. This plan has been in the works for a while. Everything will be okay. Put in an order for pizza." What I heard made no sense to me. She not only didn't invite me on the trip, but she also left on my birthday, knowing that it was going to be a great day for me. It hit me hard, but I didn't fight back. Over the years, I had learned that it was pointless to fight with her. My grandparents came over that day to celebrate with me. They brought me a cake, gifts, and love that I hadn't felt in a long time. My grandfather gave me an envelope and said, "This is from your dad's lawyer. It is now real. The house is yours." It was both good and bad. While I was glad to have something my dad had left for me, I hated how my mom had treated it like her own for years. My grandmother told me, "This is your home now," so I think they could tell I was upset. Remember that you have the power to make changes if someone makes you feel wrong. Things about those words stuck with me all day. To wish me a happy birthday. My mom didn't even call or text me. To show off her holiday, she was too busy sharing pictures of herself and her new family on social media. The breaking point for me was when I saw how bad the house was. My mom had totally forgotten about it. Their stuff was all over the living room and kitchen, and her stepson's toys and other junk were stored in my bedroom, which I actually thought of as my own place. Even though it was my house, it felt like I was living in someone else's. I thought it was time to take charge because I was angry. I called my grandparents and told them what was going on. My grandfather, who always spoke sense, told me, "You're an adult now. Laws say that you can get them out if you want to. We'll stand by you." The next few days, I planned with my grandparents and their lawyer. We looked over the papers to make sure that the house was legally owned and owned by the right people. As it turned out, my mom didn't have any right to the land. According to the will of my late father, it was all mine. The lawyer told me I was correct to ask her to leave, especially since she had been neglectful and spoiled for so long. My grandparents were always there for me. My grandfather told me, "You've been so patient these years, but now it's time to stand up for yourself. You should have more than this." My grandmother also said, "We'll make this change go as easily as possible. You're not the only one going through this." After a week of holiday, my mom and her family came back and pretended like nothing had happened. I heard my stepdad making a joke about how expensive the trip was and how the house would finally pay for it. What they said made my blood boil. It was clear that they didn't care that the house belonged to me. They used it like their own property and thought it was a free ride. They could take advantage of them forever. I talked to my mom about it in the kitchen that night. I tried to keep my voice calm and said, "Let's talk." She didn't even look up from her phone. "How are you? I told you straight out that you and your family need to leave. I'm sick of being treated like a guest in my own home." She looked at me like I had an extra head. "What do you want to say? This is where we live. You're a kid." "It's not, though," I fired back. "It's mine. The law says that Dad left it to me, and I have proof." She spat and her face turned red. "We can't just leave. In what direction should we go?" "I don't care about that. I told you straight out that you've had years to figure out what's going on. You treated me like an aside, though. Now I'm in charge." The argument that followed was something I'll never forget. My mom called me selfish, rude, and every other name you can think of. My stepdad joined in and called me a spoiled brat, my step-siblings even joined in and complained about how unfair it was. But I didn't back down. I told her I wasn't the one who left their kid on their birthday to go on vacation. I put up with your bad behavior for years, but now I'm done. You have 30 days to leave. They came over with my uncle and aunt the next morning to help me carry out my choice. They stood together and were ready to help me if things got bad. My grandfather gave my mom an official eviction letter that had been made by a lawyer and told her she couldn't fight it in court. My mom used every trick in the book to play a joke on me. She begged, cried, and even tried to make me feel bad by telling me that my dad would be so mad at me. But my grandmother stepped in right away. She told him, "Don't you dare use his memory to help your own selfishness. You have used him and his son too much for too long." As the weeks went by, the stress in the house got too much to handle. My mom and stepdad wouldn't help me pack because they were hoping I'd give in. But I stood my ground with the help of my grandparents. If they didn't leave on their own, my uncle even offered to help me change the locks. My mom finally caught on that I wasn't lying. She and her family packed up their things and left on the last day of the eviction notice. There were no sincere goodbyes or apologies, only angry looks and insults were said. It made me feel so much better when the door finally shut behind them. The house felt like mine for the first time in years. The next few days, my grandparents and I cleaned and put things back in order, getting it ready to be a house I'm proud of. Even better, my grandmother helped me redo my room, which had become a junk room for my step-siblings' toys. I was ready to make the most of my new start. My mother wasn't done making trouble, though. A week later, she called and showed up at the house without warning. When I opened the door, she screamed, "You can't just kick us out like this. This is my home." A quiet voice said, "No, it's not. You had years to make it yours, but you used it like it was free. It's now mine and you're not welcome here." She tried to get by me. But my grandfather, who was here visiting, stopped her. He told her out loud, "You need to leave. This is his house, and you have no right to be here." Her voice changed from angry to desperate. I asked, "Where should we go?" "There is nowhere else for us to go. My grandfather told me, "That's not our job. You have made your pick. It's now time to deal with the results." When she saw that she wasn't going to get anywhere, she left, but not before calling me names. I told myself I wasn't doing anything wrong, even though it hurt. I was just taking back what was rightfully mine. Over the next few weeks, my mom's behavior became more and more unpredictable. She texted and called me all the time, switching between threats and guilt trips. One day she would say, "You're tearing this family apart," and then she would say, "And then you don't think I won't sue you over this afterwards?" When I talked to the lawyer in charge of my dad's estate, she told me that she had no legal reason to question who owned the house. "He told you that you were following the rules. She's just trying to scare you." That being said, the stress began to hurt. That's when my grandparents came through again and got the rest of my family to help me. Uncles and aunts started coming to see me more often and helping me with everything from fixing things around the house to giving me mental support. They were always there to tell me that I wasn't fighting this battle by myself. The last straw was when my mom tried to take advantage of the situation even more. She told people in our extended family lies about me, calling me a cruel son who had turned his back on his mother. Others in the family knew she wasn't telling the truth, but some did. During a family meeting, my uncle spoke up against her, calling out her lies and telling everyone of how she had treated me over the years. "He told you that you left him on his birthday, and now you're acting like the victim. You need to take credit for what you did." My mom finally understood that her methods weren't working. She stopped calling and texting me, and she was no longer in my life at all. It was both good and bad. Even though everything, I still loved her, but I knew that ending our relationship was best for me. Life was peaceful for the first time in years after my mother and her new family left. Before, the house was a mess, but now it was my safe place. My grandparents kept coming to see me, which helped me get used to being a homeowner. My aunts and uncles helped out by giving me advice and being there for me, making sure I never felt too busy. Being independent made me feel strong. I started working part-time, went to community college, and started making plans for my future. Like I had a strong link to my dad's heritage every time I walked through the door of my house. It was more than just a house. It showed that he loved and cared for me, and that he always wanted the best for his son. After a few months, I got a surprise call from a family member who had believed my mom's lies at first. They were sorry they didn't believe me when they knew the truth about her actions. They said, "I'm sorry we didn't see it sooner. That wasn't fair to you." It was a small but important moment. I knew that the people who really cared about me would see the truth in the end, even if it took a while. When I was cleaning out the attic of old stuff one day, I found a box full of my dad's items. He had written in a notebook and put pictures and letters inside. As I read his words, I felt like I had a new reason for living. He wrote about his goals for me, like how he wanted me to be strong, independent, and kind as I grew up. Even though I had been through a lot, it was a powerful reassurance that I was on the right track. When my mom tried to get in touch with me again, it was the end of this story. Months after they stopped talking. She wrote a long email saying she was sorry, saying she had realized her mistake, and she wanted to make things right. A part of me wanted to believe her, but I couldn't forget how she had treated me for years of neglect and privilege. I sent a simple message back. I hope everything goes well for you, but I've moved on. Please stay within my limits. I feel a lot better today. My house is really my home, and it's full of love, laughter, and thoughts of my dad. No matter what, my grandparents are always there for me and are proud of how far I've come. It's never easy to stand up for yourself, but it's always worth it. I hope this helps. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you like this story. What's next is something you won't want to miss.